Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily. My favorite makeup today is actually my skincare. So it's nighttime right now, so I just put this on. This is my Luna Sleeping Night Oil from Sunday Riley. This has been really wonderful in helping reduce sort of like weird pigmentation on my skin, calming down my redness, that kind of thing. I wouldn't necessarily say it's reducing my pores or wrinkles, but I don't think it's hurting on that. This stuff does smell really weird when you first get started on it, but over time you get used to the smell, so it's okay. And also, I've been using this bottle since the beginning of the year, and there's still at least 2/3 of it left, so a little of this goes a long way. I'm using the correct amount, and you know, it's pretty great. So for today's video, we're going to be doing a swatch and watch. I do have swatches for everything we're going to be talking about except one palette, and that's because, not that I couldn't do the swatches of it, it's just they were pretty much exactly the same as a different palette, which we'll get to. But first up, we're going to take a look at this. So this is the Soft Glam palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is $42. This basically comes to $3 per shade because it's 0.74 grams of product per shade. So when I saw this palette in stores, I was actually surprised that it looked much better in person than it had looked in photographs. I thought it looked a lot more boring in photographs. And you could see the actual differences in the colors of the shadows once you saw it. However, I don't think that's necessarily going to translate to your face. I don't think the slightly whiter versus slightly yellower golds are really going to translate. It might make a difference on certain people, but overall, like, it looks like a very beautiful palette and a very, you know, useful basic nude palette. But if you've got a palette like this, I don't think you're going to need it. I do think that the shadow quality felt really nice. I was enjoying swatching them. They looked really pretty on my hand. It appeared to be a much easier, more blendable formula than, say, the Subculture palette would be. And I like the Subculture palette, but you know, some people were complaining that it's not as easy to use as the Modern Renaissance, and this seems about similar to that. Also, I know there's some duplicate colors, so some people were complaining about picking up this palette anyway because they already have some of these colors in, for example, the Modern Renaissance palette. For me, I would consider purchasing this if I didn't already have a pretty good selection of neutrals at home already to my disposal, so I don't need this palette. Though I actually do think it looks very pretty. It's just a little basic for me. It's just not colors I need. But if you like that kind of thing, I do think the quality is there. So, you know, if that appeals to you, you should definitely get it. And while I was there, I took a look at this. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Amrezy highlighter. So this is 9 grams of product. This is $28. And this is sort of a light gold, I forget how they phrased it exactly. It's a light gold highlighter. It's very shimmery. It's very beautiful on the skin. It's got a really interesting texture. It's very, it feels almost rough when you touch it with your finger, but then when you put it on your skin to do a swatch, it actually feels very soft and very smooth. So I found that very interesting. So here's the swatch. And I also compared this to a couple of different things. I looked at it for color matches. I checked it against the summer shade in the Sun Dipped Glow Kit, which it's actually very similar to that. I wish I had my Nicole Guerrero kit to compare against, but I don't have it with me. And I also wish I'd had my Hourglass Metallic Strobe Lighting palette to compare it against, because I've heard that that's very similar as well. It looks like it would be. I did compare it to the Hourglass highlighting sticks. So I did it against Champagne Flash and Gold Flash, and they're very, very similar in color, like very, very similar. I already have a Champagne Flash that I got as a sample, so for me, I decided not to pick up this highlighter, even though it does look really beautiful, because I already have some other gold highlighters that are pretty much the same, and for 9 grams of product, I'm never going to get through that thing. I do think it looks very pretty, and I understand why people are so excited about it. And if I didn't already have many other gold highlighters, or if this was, for example, a purple highlighter, then I would definitely be buying it. But because it's a gold highlighter and I have a bunch of those, I'm not going to be picking this one up. Next up, we have this. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Sunset palette. This comes with 5 shades. These are 0.8 grams of product each. Those are $5 a shadow because this is $25. This is really tiny looking. Like, look at this comparison to my hand. It looks really, really small, but when I actually compared the weight in grams, apparently there's a decent amount of product in this. The pans, I guess, must be kind of deep because they're very small and square. They didn't look as easy to get shadow out of as, like, say, the Soft Glam palette, even though it's a pretty similar amount of shadow per shade in these palettes. So for me, these shades in particular, they weren't anything special when I swatched them on my arm. If you needed colors like this and you've never tried the Natasha Denona formula, maybe that'd be something to use. But it's so tiny, it looks like I'm gonna lose it. And I like mini palettes, and this one just sort of, I don't know, I find it off-putting somehow. So while I've always wanted to try a Natasha Denona palette, I don't think this is the one. Next up, we have the Tarte Be a Mermaid palette. This is $42. This is also 0.8 grams of product per shade. So that is the same as the Natasha Denona's in terms of how much product per shade it is, but this is $3 a shade as opposed to $5. So it's the same pricing as the ABH palette instead, which is good. It's the same number of shadows. However, this palette, on the other hand, if I wasn't already annoyed with Tarte enough as it is, I mean, this does look pretty. I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna look at it at least. I don't think I'm gonna pick that up because I'm just not feeling it right now. If you cover up the 3 bottom shades in this palette, it looks exactly like a bunch of other palettes on the market. It looks a lot like that Natasha Denona, and it looks a lot like the next palette we're going to talk about, which is this. And this is the Urban Decay Backtalk palette. This is $46. Now you're getting a ton of product in this. You're getting 8 shadows, and the eyeshadows are 1.4 grams of product, apparently, according to the Urban Decay website. This info is not on Sephora. And then the blush highlighter stuff is 4 grams of product each, which is huge. That's a ton of product. So you're getting a lot of stuff for this $46. However, the pigmentation on these is kind of crappy. I don't know if it was just the swatches that I did, but I didn't think these looked really good in person. They just kind of looked patchy and boring. There was only one shadow in the eyeshadow side that looked good at all, and that was the sort of shimmery copper shade, like the reddish copper one towards the end. I just didn't think they looked that nice. I was really disappointed. The blushes and the highlighters, I'm like, meh, they're all right, but I don't need those. I don't. And I don't need this mauvey pinky stuff. Everybody's got this, but I could get either the Backtalk palette or I could get that Tarte palette, and they look pretty much the same if you just cover up those bottom 3. There's just nothing special about this. I'm underwhelmed. I thought I was really gonna love that palette too, because I was really interested in it, and then when I went and swatched it, I was like, there's nothing good about this. And last up, we have this. This is the Mothership Subversive La Vie en Rose palette. This is a selection of shades similar to some of the other Mothership palettes. This just has 6 shades to pick from. This is the one that I wanted particularly because I was really into these purples and these pinks. This costs $55. There are 2 grams of product per shadow, so that makes it $9.16 per gram, so that's pretty expensive. I will say that the swatches on this are amazing. However, I took my hand home with me after this, and I did swatch this against my Violet Voss Rainbow palette, and I swatched it against my Urban Decay Kristen Leanne Kaleidoscope Dream palette, and I can dupe out the purples pretty easily with those, also with the Heavy Metals palette. I'm also pretty sure if I had my After Dark palette from Urban Decay, I could sort of get a better swatch out of that top, like, pinky shade. Again, I'm not going to get exact duplicates, and I don't think they're going to be quite as pigmented. I think in the long run, I can get these shades somewhere else, and I don't need to purchase this. However, I really thought these swatches were amazing. However, I will tell you this, that gold shade, I left the Sephora, and I had to walk home. It was about like a 10-minute walk back to the place we were staying, and the gold kept flaking down my arm. So I would be careful about that, because that one definitely has a lot of fallout for it. So while it is very beautiful, it continued to fall out down my arm over time, and I kept looking at the swatches again and then sort of blowing it off because I wanted to make sure I could get this home so I could swatch it against other stuff. And it just kept making me laugh how much gold sort of drifted down into any of the swatches lower than that, because it just kept falling off of my hand. So be careful with that, guys. Anyway, I was kind of disappointed that all the stuff I went and swatched lately, just nothing compelled me to buy. I actually walked out of Sephora and I didn't buy anything. And for so many new releases this week, I was sure I was going to pick up something, but just nothing appealed. I mean, I even saw the Kat Von D I Am Divine palette in person. I was basically underwhelmed. I didn't feel like that was worth getting either. I didn't feel like taking pictures of the swatches either. There were like 3 good shades in it. It's not worth it. So I just feel kind of disappointed and let down by a lot of the releases lately. So I'm hoping, you know, some other stuff's going to come up soon, then I'm going to be more enthusiastic. In the meantime, until something interesting and exciting comes out, I'm just going to keep using the palettes I have with me right now and just doing new looks with that. So I'm sorry if the content is not to your liking or it's a little more boring because I'm sort of reusing old stuff. But I also think it's really important to make sure you use the things that you have, because I have too much makeup that I don't use because there's only one face and I can't do everything. So I'm really giving consideration to, you know, buying what's really important and making sure I get a lot of use out of the products I already own. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content on this channel, please subscribe. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!